This is CBC Here and Now.
Patio season is officially here, and if you're among those who cannot wait to come down and sit outside, you might have a harder time choosing this year.
I'm loving it. I think it's wonderful. I see it as a growing culture, close to 80 dicks this year.
Why that is, I'll have the details coming up on Here and Now.
Well, it was certainly patio weather in parts of Labrador today, but it isn't going to be that way tomorrow.
Sometimes we'll get a little bit earlier, early July, but predominantly mid-July. So to have them spawn in late June again is a positive sign.
Well, the capelin have arrived and they're early.
Why DFO scientists say that's a positive sign. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start tonight with that ship anchored off Conception Bay. A dozen crew aboard an Italian vessel have tested positive for COVID-19. And with no new cases in the province today, the majority of Newfoundland and Labrador's caseload is aboard that boat.
Now, for now, the crew will remain there. And if this feels familiar, that's because just 2 months ago, another foreign cargo ship faced the exact same situation. Our Chrissy Holmes has more.
Right now, the majority of the province's caseload is confined aboard that ship, the Ivor Ambition, which is anchored just off the coast of Kelly's Island in Conception Bay. Now, this isn't the first time that a ship has been anchored there with a sick crew. So we wanted to find out how they're doing. Yesterday, I reached out to the operator, Vroon, to ask how they are. And we got a response pretty quickly. What we now know is that there are 15 crew in total on board, and 12 of those crew members are infected with COVID-19. Spokesperson Chris Savoy went on to say the crew is doing well and only have very minor symptoms, but we will continue to monitor them closely. He also went on to say that the majority of the crew have been vaccinated. In addition to their shots, the crew were also tested before they departed, and they were PCR tested. That is considered to be the gold standard of testing. Think nasal swabs, the same kind of tests that our own public health use at the drive-thrus, for example, tests that are sent to a lab for results. They also have COVID protocols on board as well for departure and for arrival in different ports. Here's what else we learned. The crew fell ill a few days before arriving in Canadian waters, and the decision was then made to deviate here for safe anchorage in Conception Bay. We also know that the ship is fully loaded and, according to an online vessel tracking website, was on its way to deliver bitumen, a crude oil product, to Trois-Rivières, Quebec. We're told that the crew is mainly Romanian, Russian, and Filipino. We're also told that local authorities, as well as the Public Health Agency of Canada, have been in touch and are monitoring the situation, and that the ship will remain anchored here until next steps are determined. Chrissy Holmes, CBC News, Conception Bay South.
Well, the capelin are rolling on the Northeast Avalon weeks ahead of schedule. For DFO scientists, the early spawning season is a very good sign. Here Now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
Capelin rolling is a yearly event driving folks in droves to the beaches with their buckets.
Whoa!
While scenes like this one filled social media sites, putting smiles on faces and food in bellies, it's the timing of it all that DFO is keeping a close eye on.
Persistently spawning around July 13th is their average spawning date from 1991 till last year. So sometimes we'll get a little bit earlier, early July, but predominantly mid-July. So to have them spawn in late June again is a positive sign.
DFO research scientist Hannah Murphy has been keeping tabs on the rolling capelin. The stock has been hurting for the past few years and still hasn't fully recovered from the collapse in the early 1990s.
What we think is happening is that the capelin are a lot smaller when they collapse. The stock collapsed. Fish started to change their biology in that they mature earlier, and they're smaller on average than they were in the 1980s, for example. So these small fish are taking longer to get into the bays to spawn.
There are some other reasons for the late spawning, factors like ice conditions, which then impact wind conditions.
The survival of their young is really important to help predict how many adults there'll be in a couple of years. So when they're spawning earlier in the season, like in late June, That gives their larvae, their little babies, enough time to grow before their first winter.
An early spawning could help the stock in the years to come.
This late spawning has really, we think, has impacted the low productivity of capelin. And so again, having some early spawning, we hope give a good chance for these larvae to survive and produce strong year classes in the future.
DFO has data on spawning dates going back to 1978, but she wanted to cast a wider net. With the help of two colleagues, they went back in time.
So we went back to 1919 by looking into newspaper archives that were digitized by MUN. We also looked in the primary literature and our research beaches and spawning diaries. And we found that on average, capelin were spawning on beaches around June 25th from 1919 to 1990. And then from 1991 till recently, it's been July 13th.
Murphy says the research on those timelines is being peer-reviewed, but should be released later this year. But back on the beach, the focus is getting capelin to her feet. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, certainly is in capelin weather up across Labrador. This, like I said yesterday, is some of that heat left over from that heat dome that was affecting the west coast. Reached 33 degrees a few minutes ago in Happy Valley Goose Bay, so that broke the old record of 29.4 back in 1975. Now, a number of areas across Labrador are seeing those warm temperatures. 25 degrees in Labrador, Lab City rather, 23 in Cartwright today. And those temperatures aren't going to last for Happy Valley Goose Bay. In fact, you're going to see 20-degree drop as we head through the night, and then a rainfall warning in place for Nain. I'll get into all the details when I come back.
Well, thanks, Ashley. For the second year in a row, visitors to the downtown area can take a stroll through the pedestrian mall. And this time, it's not only on Water Street in St. John's, but also on Duckworth. As Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm reports, the growing number of patios is not just a fad for the pandemic.
Patios as far as the eye can see. What started out last year as a pilot project is seeing an even bigger response this year. A total of about 80 businesses has applied for a patio permit this summer. Last year, less than half as many, 30, wanted to serve their customers in the open. What seems to be a pandemic phenomenon is more an expression of a changing culture in the city.
I think is one part of an overall emerging patio culture, because this plan was something 3-4 years ago. Before the pandemic, we worked out a plan then to allow businesses to rent the areas like we're standing here in front of their businesses to put such parklets up. So this was coming before the pandemic was ever in our lives.
Business owners are hoping the patio culture is here to stay. The majority of patios can be found in the pedestrian mall downtown, but some have started to pop up outside of it, like on other sections of Duckworth Street.
I think that this sort of thing only makes the downtown livelier. It clearly brings a lot of people around, even having the pedestrian mall. I think the pedestrian mall should be a permanent thing. There's many opportunities with it, and I think it's great for the public.
Visitors to the city's downtown area are agreeing the mall should come back every year.
It's absolutely a work in progress. Every year, I'm still considering it a pilot project, because this year we've added George Street and portions of Duckworth Street. So every year I think it will grow and get more beautiful, more enhanced. But yes, I see it as a permanent structure within the city.
Most people and businesses seem enthusiastic about the transformation of downtown St. John's into an outdoor space.
I'm loving it. I think it's wonderful. We're just walking today to have a look, so we'll be definitely coming back.
Oh, I love it. Down here last year, and it was just marvelous. Something brand new, and come down and you run into people that you don't see very often, right? And just hang out and just relax. It was wonderful.
The growing patio culture is one thing, but some businesses outside of the downtown pedestrian mall feel they've been left out of it. This year there are 2 really small one-block sections of Duckworth Street that have been pedestrianized, but unfortunately it's not really a mall, it's not really a pedestrian experience. The very first Saturday that the pedestrian mall operated this summer, our sales were less than half of what they would be the Saturday before and every Saturday before that. I think if they continue to privilege just one street, you'll see businesses closing. For a city that hasn't had many downtown patios in the past, some people now like it so much they'd like to see it permanently. The city says that's not likely. It's too complicated for fire and safety and winter snow clearing. But Councillor Debbie Hanlon does believe patio culture will continue to become a growing seasonal trend in the city. Henrike Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it's a common complaint during the summer season, one that makes a lot of noise, especially downtown. Police are teaming up with the province's highway enforcement to crack down on illegally modified vehicles, specifically cars and motorcycles that are much too loud. Once again, here's Jeremy Eaton.
Police slowed traffic along Signal Hill Road this afternoon, flagging drivers whose vehicles sounded a little too loud to be legal.
If you're going to modify your vehicle and put the health and safety of our community at risk, you will be held accountable.
It's annoying to residents, so much so that there are half a dozen of these signs posted near Signal Hill. It's also having a severe impact on some, those dealing with mental health issues and those with sensory challenges.
We are hearing loud and clear throughout the communities that persons are struggling, are being put in crisis as a result of excessive noise and aggressive behavior on the roads throughout our communities.
It's a growing problem in St. John's and all across the province. For Service NL Minister Sarah Studley, it's a problem she hears about all the time from constituents.
This is a big deal for me personally. I live near the university and I get woken up on average, I'd say once a night, from a ridiculously loud vehicle driving up and down the street. It's infuriating. They wake up my son.
Officers checked license, registration, and insurance on all the possible offenders before taking a look underneath to make sure everything was legal.
They can issue a ticket or they can send the motorcycle for a mandatory inspection from a garage. And actually a new thing we launched last fall to try and combat this further was new inspection regulations for garages and motorcycles specifically.
The consequence is that it will be further investigated by our officers, and the information provided by the expertise of Service NL highway enforcement officers here will be utilized by our members as they progress through any investigation here at this checkpoint.
While multiple drivers were pulled aside for inspection, only one, a motorcyclist, was found to have illegally modified their vehicle. But police say you can expect to see stops like this one throughout the summer. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, while the pandemic has kept many friends and families apart, it actually brought the Nagy sisters closer together.
Yes, not only did the trio pick up and move to a new province, it also inspired a new career path. Have a look.
Hi, I'm Eve.
My name is Kay.
I'm Hajar.
And we are Figs and Fromage. So my sister and I, Hajar, we were both flight attendants before the pandemic happened, and then of course shortly after March we were laid off. It kind of spurred us to start this business because her and I used to go on layovers often, and our favorite activity was to go to the grocery store, pick up some meat and cheese, meet up with the rest of the crew, and have a little charcuterie spread.
Everything was shut down. There weren't a lot of job options, especially with someone such as myself that has 2 children at home. And we actually reached out to MBO, Metro Business Opportunities, and they helped us by providing us with a loan to get this started. So this started in September. Started out of my home. I shortly later convinced Kay to move from Ontario and move here to help us. And it just became a 3-sister business and joint effort. And 9 months later, we're here.
Eve wasn't a flight attendant with us. Now she's like a big part of the team, and it's the 3 of us working together, and it's been great.
There's all of this creativity that kind of happens when we're putting a board together, and it's never it's not hard. It just kind of comes naturally.
And we get to work with my sisters, and they're my best friends, so doesn't feel like work. It hasn't felt like work for the last 9 months.
The best part of this experience, other than creating a company and a brand with my sisters, just the gratitude and how I make people happy by making them a charcuterie box, and I've never experienced that in any other job, and it's very rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the temperatures have been climbing this evening, and so have the winds. Unfortunately, we're going to hang on to these winds over the next couple of days, but I'll get into the full details when I come back.
All right, Ashley, before we launch into the weather, we have another fabulous whale video for you tonight.
Yeah, we shared some incredible video with you yesterday of a pod of orcas surrounding a boat off of St. Philip's.
Yes, well, tonight we'll take you to St. Vincent's. Just have a look. Wow, yes, that sight is certainly worthy of some hoots and hollers and a couple of barks in there too. Humpback whales having a grand feed just a stone's throw away from those excited spectators. The shore drops off just meters from the beach so the whales can get really close to land.
Yeah, no doubt those whales are swallowing up massive mouthfuls of capelin. Just incredible. That video was taken Saturday evening by Jennifer Higdon.
Wow, St. Vincent's Beach, such a great place to go see whales.
Last time I was there, it was socked in fog.
Yep, great place to visit on the Irish Loop.
That's right. It is. Definitely going to go back and see some of that Some of that whale action for sure. Pretty nice weather to see the whales over the last couple of days, and it looks like we're going to see that as well. We do have an area of low pressure to the north there, just affecting Labrador right now. And if I zoom in, we saw lots of sunshine across the island today. Took a little bit longer to clear out this afternoon for eastern areas. A little bit more cloud cover rolling through now, but pay attention to that cold front because that is going to drop the temperatures as we head through the next 24 hours for parts of Labrador. Here's where we're sitting right now, 33 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Lab City. You saw a high near 25 earlier today. Your temperatures dropped down to 18 degrees, and it took its time, those temperatures, to reach these daytime highs for central, well, most of the island really. 28 degrees right now in Gander and 21 in St. John's. We may see another degree temperature rise as we head through the next hour or so, but then that should be the end of it for tonight. Do have lots of rain on the way for parts of Labrador, certainly for the northern portion around Nain as we head through the night tonight, that rainfall warning in place. Even the chance of a few rumbles of thunder over the next couple of hours for Lab City, but then that should end as we head through the evening hours. But we will see some of that heavy rain head towards the coast as well. Not a whole lot happening across the island. We're going to see the clouds on the increase after midnight, and then that chance of some showers, even fog patches developing pretty much along the west, the north, and all along the southern portion of the island as we head through the overnight tonight. I showed this yesterday, but that snow potential overnight tonight and into the first half of tomorrow morning, probably in the higher elevations, but the overnight lows aren't dipping too much near the surface, so we'll more than likely see, if anything does fall, it'll fall in those higher elevations. Here's that rain as I was talking about. Most amount will be in and around Nain. You're looking at a good 50 millimeters, but there is a chance to see upwards of 70, some pockets of 70 millimeters. Otherwise, this will take us through to tomorrow evening. You're looking at about trace to 5 millimeters just south of that. Temperatures tonight will drop for Lab City down to 8 degrees tonight. Those winds are going to stay breezy as well out of the north, about 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Temperatures across the island looking beautiful into the teens as our overnight lows, but those winds are going to stay up tonight as well. Westerlies gusting somewhere between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour in the east. And again, that shower activity developing as we get into the early morning hours. For the west, your winds will be out of the southwest about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So tomorrow, that cold front is going to sweep through and it's going to drop those temperatures across Labrador like a rock into the afternoon. And then we start to see that potential for some snow sink south, even in and around Happy Valley, Goose Bay, that potential. Again, temperatures will likely stay warm as you get into the evening hours, though those temperatures are going to drop even cooler, so into the single digits, hovering just a few degrees above zero. So some of those higher elevations through central Labrador may see a few flurries in the mix. I'm not anticipating widespread areas of seeing any accumulation, but that risk is certainly there as that cold front sweeps through. And then as far as the island goes, we are looking at that potential for a few showers sticking around, certainly along the south coast. That will be the story as we see some cloud cover. Going to creep a little bit further north as the day goes on. 22 degrees in St. John's as the daytime high. Again, those winds will stay strong, gusting upwards of 60 kilometers per hour. Back into the high 20s through central, a little bit of sunshine, and then staying gray on the west coast. You're looking at temperature near 20 degrees for Corner Brook. And then for the northern peninsula, 21, showers will move in as well. And then there's that drop in temperatures I was talking about. 6 degrees in Nain, 13 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. That's 20 degrees colder than what you're seeing today. So that's a look at the forecast for tomorrow. We'll talk about the rest of the forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. A series of concerts attracting thousands of people over multiple days. Sounds hard to imagine. It's been a while.
Yes, it has. But in another sign of recovery, that's exactly what's planned for St. John's in September. Here now's Terry Roberts spoke to the organizer, John Steele.
So it's almost feels odd that we're talking about a concert series coming up, considering what we've been through. So tell us, you've gotten some sort of approval. How did that work, and what does it mean?
Well, as you know, with the pandemic, everything has been up in the air and stuff. So we've been trying to figure out how do we move forward? How can we do this event in a safe, efficient manner that's still economically viable? And so we reached out to public health, who've been very engaged with us in the process, and we developed plans in coordination with them to be able to put the tent off in a safe and efficient manner. And we have different contingency plans and also enhanced safety protocols that are a norm today. And they liked what we had, and they gave us the idea, saying that we can go forward under the current situation that we have here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But ultimately, the big key is vaccinations. We can't be truly safe if we don't have the vast majority of people fully vaccinated. And if you look at Newfoundland, I think I saw something yesterday or today, we're #1 in North America right now for first vaccinations. So by September the 8th, when we start, we should have the vast majority of the population double or fully vaccinated. So it should be a very safe and fun event for everybody.
So what kind of symbolism do you hope to bring to it this year, knowing that what we've come through?
Well, people have been cooped up a lot, and people, hiking's great and baking bread is great and all that stuff, but I think everybody's had their bit of fill of that, understandably. I mean, it's good to do it, but a lot of stuff that we're used to doing, we haven't been able to do, and a lot of stuff that we took for granted, such as going and enjoying live music with other people of like-minded taste, is one of the great experiences for humans, in my opinion. There's something that cannot compensate for the live music experience. And so to be able to get out and do that and be as safe as you possibly can be under the circumstances, I think it's probably a liberating feeling for a lot of people, and it gives people right now say like, wow, in September, I'm going to be able to do this. So we'll just hold down a bit and get to September and have a great time.
We've heard now about variants, the Delta variant of the coronavirus. And you mentioned, there's conditions, you have contingency plans. Walk me through how you might deal with a situation that might come up.
Well, first and foremost, if there's a big breakout and there's community spread, I mean, public health aren't going to let the event go ahead under that circumstances, nor should they. That's the dice that we're rolling. But we believe, by you look at the data and in our interactions with experts on this stuff, that fully vaccinated, that we should, most likely not have big, massive community spread. So I think we're going to be okay. But there's always a risk in these things, but we're willing to roll the dice.
Okay. So what kind of an entertainment are you looking to provide? Will this, considering again the local considerations, bringing in acts from outside the province, what can people expect?
There'll be different genres of music, a mixture of international acts, national acts, and also some local acts. So it's going to be a bunch of different genres, and I think we've had a pretty good standard over the years of entertainment, and it'll be to the same standards that we had before. So
are you still booking groups, or can you name anyone right now?
We have it pretty well all booked. There's just a couple slots that we have to fill out, and but we're getting our ticketing information all put together, that type of stuff, and in a week or so we'll be unveiling the lineup and ticketing information.
Okay, so you're not going to drop any names for us right now, but what can people expect in terms of ticket prices, that kind of thing? Will they be consistent with what they were before?
Yeah, they'll be pretty well in line where they were before. They might marginally be a little bit higher, but there are some extra costs involved, but there won't be any radical increase in pricing.
Mr. Steele, thank you.
Thank you.
I can confidently say that my appointment is a historic and inspirational moment for Canada, and an important step forward on the long path towards reconciliation.
The new Governor General, Mary Simon, is a seasoned diplomat and negotiator and the first Indigenous person to represent the Crown. That story, as well as local reaction. Well, to the big national story of the day, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has named Mary Simon as the next Governor General to Canada. And it's a historic appointment of the first Indigenous person to that role. And it's also a chance for Trudeau to make amends after the fallout over his previous selection. Now, Ashley Burke broke the original story about staff complaints about the personal conduct of former GG Julie Payette. And Ashley Burke now has the latest about the future occupant of Rideau Hall.
A historic appointment in the wake of a historic resignation.
I cannot think of a better person to meet the moment.
I can confidently say that my appointment is a historic and inspirational moment for Canada.
Mary Simon, an Inuk leader and former Canadian diplomat, selected as the first Indigenous Queen's representative to Canada during a critical time.
Governor General of Canada.
Taking office with a different kind of bilingualism, Inuktitut and English.
I was denied the chance to learn French during my time in the federal government day schools.
She has a unique ability to talk about a lived experience, to talk about the issues that she has worked on in her career.
That selection a step forward, only happening because of the Prime Minister's past failure. To vet the previous Governor General Julie Payette, who resigned in disgrace over reports of harassment, leaving behind a shattered workplace culture that Simon will need to restore at Rideau Hall.
As Governor General, I am fully committed to setting and maintaining the highest possible standard of work and ethic in all aspects of my duties.
She's stepping into, a situation that very much parallels the Crown Indigenous relationship in Canada in general. A relationship that has been abusive and has been neglected and toxic.
As Canada walks the path of reconciliation, having an Indigenous leader in the highest constitutional office in the country is a big step forward on that path. The government hopes to have an installation ceremony for Simon within the next 6 weeks. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, Inuit people from our province are also reacting to Mary Simon's appointment. Nathan Obed is from Nain and is now Canada's national Inuit leader. You saw him briefly there in Ashley's report. Well, he also spoke with CBC News Network this afternoon and described how he felt as he watched Simon become the country's first Indigenous Governor General.
It was incredibly emotional. It was to see somebody like Mary Simon, who is an unquestioned Indigenous leader in this country and has been for decades, be recognized for her leadership and her service in taking on this new responsibility as Governor General, was something that was really powerful in my eyes, that we're at a place where a Governor General leads with an Indigenous language, leads with Inuktitut, but also talks about bringing Canada together and trying to see optimism and hope in our future for all Canadians, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what our backgrounds. It was really powerful. For a long time, there have been barriers in place for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis in this country, whether it's because of systemic racism, whether it's because of the fact that Indigenous languages are not official languages, and therefore Inuit, First Nations, and Métis sometimes are passed over because they might not have bilingualism in English and French. I also think that we are in a time where the relationship between Indigenous peoples in Canada and Canada is not something that is entirely positive as far as where we are. And so for a Prime Minister to have faith in an Indigenous person and to choose that person, appoint that person to this particular role as the Queen's representative in Canada, with all of those surrounding conversations in this country, I think it did take courage. I do believe that this decision was not made specifically in light of the last 3 weeks. I was fortunate enough to be a part of the advisory group that considered over 100 eminent Canadians that went through a process where my eyes were opened as to just the diversity of leadership and service that exists in this country. And so Mary Simon was one of those names, but she was there based on her record. And I believe that she is going to serve based on the experience and the knowledge, the expertise, the intelligence that she has as a Canadian, and that she'll bring her experience as an Inuk into this place. And so I think this part of this political nuance here is that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis have different experiences with the Crown. They have also different ways to celebrate or not celebrate being Canadian. And so from all of my Facebook feed, Inuit across Canada are celebrating this moment, and many other First Nations and Métis and other Canadians are joining in, and that's wonderful to see. Whether this scores political points, whether the Prime Minister has done this exclusively as a diversion tactic, or just I don't believe that for a second. I also, just to say that we have a lot of business to do with the Prime Minister, and I am not as celebratory in nature of all the things that we're doing with this government. But on this occasion, on this day, I think that the right decision was made, and I think it was made for the right reasons.
Well, in other news, some descendants of those who lost their Indian status are filing a constitutional challenge. They're arguing that their families were coerced by a deceptive policy decades ago, but the negative consequences persist to this day. Olivia Stevanovich has the details.
Even though Nadia Salmoniu is a citizen of the Haida Nation, she doesn't qualify for Indian status.
To receive a rejection letter saying that you're not Indigenous when you know that's part of who you are is deeply, deeply impactful.
Status comes with potential benefits that can include hunting and fishing rights, some tax exemptions, and health coverage. But Salmoniu's great-grandfather, Wilfred Laurier Bennett, gave that up in 1944 under a process known as enfranchisement, a difficult choice to renounce his Indigenous heritage, gaining Canadian citizenship in order to spare his descendants from residential school.
He made I believe, a forced decision to protect his children.
Salmoniu is now trying to reclaim her Indian status through a constitutional challenge.
My Haida name, San Nanguas, means the girl who sings or singing girl. You know, I know who I am.
We are going back to becoming what the government tried to make us not be anymore.
Catherine Fournier's grandfather also went to residential school. He gave up his status so he could own property. Fournier was able to regain status under a previous change to the law, but she can't pass it on to her children.
And being able to say officially and formally and quite openly, this is who I am.
Their lawyer says the Indian Act continues to discriminate against the descendants of women.
It's hard to understand why Canada has not yet decided to address this issue.
Ottawa has yet to file a legal defense, but in a statement, Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller's office acknowledges sex-based inequities continue to be felt in Indian status registration and is working on further legislative changes. Olivia Stevanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
After the break, your chance to win a unique children's book, Jessie and the 7 Wonders of the World. Is Jessie a boy or a girl? Stay tuned. Welcome back to Here and Now. We're going to talk about this unique original children's book. As you can see, it's called Jessie and the Seven Wonders of the World, and the author and the illustrator join me now. So Herb, let me start with you. What was the inspiration behind this book?
Well, you know, I hearken back to Leonard Cohen's line, which is, of course, you know, if I knew where the ideas come from, I would move there and buy some real estate. However, the idea for this book was a little more practical. I had dinner one night and we had some interesting meals. One of the meals, I'm going to refer to my notes, Kubadaya and Gochugaru were peculiar names, and I got up the next morning thinking about this, and Machu Picchu came to mind. One of the wonders of the world, and then the book extended on from there, and here it is in your hands today.
Yeah.
Just delighted to be here and talk it over with you.
Yep. So Machu Picchu is definitely in this book, as you can see right here, a beautiful drawing, and the man who made that drawing is with us as well. So Marin, it was your responsibility to make the vision for the book real. How did you collaborate with Herb to make the drawings fit?
First, Herb gave me an excellent material that allowed me to travel in COVID times when nobody else traveled. And the rest was very easy for me.
So traveling in your imagination?
Oh yeah, I traveled with my imagination because at the airports at that time were closed, as you know.
Right. So let me ask you both a question. I assume Jessie was a boy. Apparently I'm wrong. So tell me about Jessie, would you?
Well, you know, we're living in times that are all about inclusion, and rightly so, by the way. And to make Jessie a character that was either male or female kind of maybe dislodged one of the genders. So we decided that Jessie could be, by virtue of the name to begin with, could be gender neutral. In other words, it would be up to the reader to define what, or who, I should say, Jessie actually is, what gender that he or she might be.
Well, it's a wonderful idea. More appeal that way.
Indeed.
As well. So Marin, what thoughts, given the ambiguity, what thoughts were in your mind as you were creating Jessie?
As Herb said, we were trying to find a character that could fit both characteristics of either a boyish boy or a boyish girl, but someone who loves to travel and who loves adventures.
Now Jessie does go to many, many places. You got the Great Wall of China, the Colosseum, Machu Picchu, as you mentioned. I know it's difficult to choose, but do you have favorite wonders?
No, I feel it would be wrong for me to choose a particular wonder.
You just don't want to say it.
I just don't want to say it right now, but we know at the end of the book that the greatest wonder of all, I'm not going to give it away, obviously. I'll leave it up to the readers to make that decision. No, I don't have a particular favorite. No, I don't. All I can say is that it was a joy to learn and write about these wonders. Even though I was a teacher for 30 years and getting on in years right now, the learning was joyful to me, for sure.
And Marin, you're the one who depicted these wonders. Do you have a favorite?
I don't have. I believe the biggest wonder for us is the wonder of adventure. A wonder to see how big this world is and how we can learn to live together.
Wonderful thought. Last question for you both. What do you hope a child takes away from this book that you've created?
I think it's more than anything else, it's a sense of imagination. To allow the child to imagine, to allow the reader to imagine, to take that reader to places that they might not otherwise even know about. Take them outside their own world.
Marin?
Maybe you will see in some of the illustrations there are hidden elements that will be good for children to continue exploring before they buy their first ticket to one of the wonders in the world.
All right, some cryptic stuff in there as well. Oh, quickly, you've just signed a deal apparently with an international organization about this book. You want to quickly tell me about that, Herb?
Wow, this has been exciting because our little book that started on the dining room table now is in the hands of an international organization called the New Seven Wonders Foundation out of Zurich, Switzerland. They've licensed just today the opportunity for them to use this book.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to you both, and appreciate you sharing your thoughts about this book.
Thank you.
Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, you can win a copy of this. We have 4 to give away. All you have to do is check this out and tell us, why was this in the news recently? All right, why was this in the news? Send your answer to that email address that you see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll pick the first 4 correct answers and send you a copy of the book.
There were plenty of nerves around the Euro 2020 game in London today, but not just about the soccer match. Tens of thousands packed the stands of Wembley Stadium to watch Italy and Spain face off. Certainly not a sight that we're used to in recent months. As Tessa Arcilia explains, it has some medical officials on edge.
Wembley will be at 75% capacity tonight and tomorrow night, as well as the final. That's welcoming some 60,000 fans. This is the biggest crowd so far. Now, the Euro 2020 is part of the events research program of the government, where they monitor transmission of COVID-19 at big events. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is encouraging fans to support their team, but to do so responsibly.
I think my advice to everybody would be to, to obviously to support England, but enthusiastically, but in a responsible way. And the events at Wembley clearly have particular conditions attached to them.
Ticket holders will have to prove that they're either fully vaccinated or that they've had a negative COVID-19 test within 48 hours before the event. Now, here in London, the mayor is encouraging young people to book their vaccination appointment. That will allow them to be part of a draw where they're giving away 2 tickets to the Euro 2020 final. Now, some people are worried that all the measures in place will still not prevent a spread of the virus at these big events, although soccer officials are putting their money on vaccinations and border controls to prevent a big new wave. Tessa Arcilia, CBC News, London.
Well, summer is only just starting. Lots of contests, of course, but I'm willing to bet that this sandcastle in northwest Denmark is going to take top prize. You're looking at the tallest sandcastle in the world, more than 21 meters high. That's almost 70 feet. It took more than 4 tons of sand to put this thing together, with some clay to help it all stick. 30 artists worked on it, and the crowning touch, a coronavirus bacteria right at the very top of it. Another wonder of the world. Fantastic. There you see it.
Wow, that's something. Well, for the right price, you could live like royalty on PEI, where a couple of castles are for sale. Yes, these are miniatures built to look like the Tower of London and Dunvegan Castle in Scotland. They've been around for decades, once part of a park that's since been sold. Now, these 2 castles are still for sale, though, along with about 2.5 acres of land. Now, the agent selling them says they still need a lot of work and they aren't move-in ready. The price tag, $120,000 for the pair. Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, Carolyn. It looks like a bit of work.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Workers come with it. That's great. Now, we wanted to see for ourselves just how small scale these castles are. Certainly not as big as the real Tower of London.
And you just saw there, not so small, the realtors you just saw there posing in front of those castles. There you go. Gives us a sense of the size. All right, time now for a look at the long-range forecast. A real roller coaster for Labrador coming up for tomorrow. But how are things looking ahead?
Yeah, so they're going to drop tomorrow and then rebound as we get into Thursday. We're going to see temperatures back up to in and around where we should be sitting this time of year. Let's take a look at the forecast for your Thursday. Sunshine, 18 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Chance of showers, though, as you head towards the coast, 14 degrees in Cartwright. And then a fairly nice day for Thursday for the island, although those temperatures will be a little bit cooler. We're going to see a little bit of unsettled conditions with that chance of showers through parts of central. Your temperatures will be sitting in the teens as the afternoon high. Some sunshine for St. John's, or at least some cloudy periods in the mix as well. The daytime high should sit around 18 degrees. As we get into Friday, we're going to start to see those temperatures rebound back into the 20s for parts of Labrador. Cartwright 21, 23 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Sunshine the story for Lab City and Nain. Finally going to see those double-digit temperatures. And then we'll see a little bit of a rebound across the island. Unsettled day through the day on Friday. And then we're going to start to see the effects of the remnants of what is Tropical Storm Elsa. So here it is here right now, just heading towards Florida. The environment actually is conducive to seeing it form as a hurricane, or at least strengthen to a hurricane as we head through the next couple of hours. That is going to head north over the next through Friday, even into Saturday, and now we're in the cone of uncertainty for the path of what will be a remnant low by the time we get there. So we'll likely see some wind with this one, and then potentially some rain as well. Doesn't look like anything too significant at this point, but we will see that affect the weather as we get into the weekend. So temperatures for Saturday, still looking into the 20s, 23 degrees. By Sunday, that should clear out fairly quickly. Some sunshine, and 22 degrees will be the afternoon high. For central Newfoundland, you're going to see the effects as well, looking at about 23 degrees on Saturday. Look at Sunday's forecast, though. Beautiful, 24 degrees. Rain the story again for western Newfoundland, and then sunshine as we get into Sunday. Temperatures will be hovering in and around 21, and those overnight lows about 10 to 13 degrees. For eastern Labrador, still in that cone of uncertainty. We may see a few showers with that as well. 23 degrees, same thing into Sunday, but look at Lab West. Temperatures in the teens and plenty of sunshine. Want to share this quick photo? Picture perfect Skirwink Trail. Dawn shared that one with us. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
A great trail, but not for the faint of heart. There are some parts that open up out there, but great if you love hiking, you got to go and see it.
For sure.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Good night.